The Syndicate command was silent, the silence of a predator waiting in the dark. Elias Thorne's gilded cage was now Audrey's throne room, but the power struggle was far from over. Audrey and I had won the battle for internal control, but the war was now against the unpredictable, the uncontrollable, and the Council's simmering disapproval. The red alert, the deep fissure anomaly dominated every screen. It was an energy signature unlike anything recorded, too vast for a nuclear accident, too deep for conventional military action, and too mathematically precise for a natural disaster. It was centered beneath the deep Arctic ice shelf. I, now co-chairman but still the chief operator by nature, was hunched over the main console, surrounded by frantic analysts who were struggling to categorize the phenomenon. The air in the command center had grown colder, a physical manifestation of the polar threat, or perhaps just the effect of our hyper-efficient climate control struggling to cope with the sheer data load. My eyes burned from the light, and I could taste the stale, recirculated oxygen of the bunker. "It's not kinetic energy, and it's not thermal," I stated, running a hand through my hair, feeling the familiar burn of sleep deprivation. "It's a harmonic resonance, almost a pulse, radiating from 3 distinct equidistant points deep within the crust. It started small, a trickle, but in the last 72 hours, it has amplified exponentially." Audrey watched me, standing straight and regal, the heirloom ring a dull silver accent on her finger, a physical assertion of her stolen authority. "Elias spent 30 years trying to eliminate all threats," she noted, her gaze fixed on the glowing map, political, economic, military. "He never mentioned anything like this." "That's because this isn't a threat we designed," I replied, pulling up a geological map overlaid with the energy readings. "It looks like something is actively breaching the continental plate, and it's not using explosives. It's using controlled vibration. It's like a tuning fork hitting the lithosphere." The Syndicate Council, the ghosts, were furious about the shared leadership, but their silence since Audrey's declaration was deafening, a clear sign that their retaliation would be strategic, not impulsive. They weren't interested in immediate skirmish. They were interested in the execution of governance. Their move came in the form of a priority-coded message that bypassed every normal channel and appeared only on Audrey's personal terminal. A council executor, a man named Marcus Vex, had arrived unannounced at the Ironwood perimeter. Vex was known as the council's internal auditor, a man who dismantled operations that became too ambitious, specializing in the quiet, systematic dissolution of problematic assets. His reputation was built on forensic ruthlessness. He didn't use bongs, he used balance sheets and personality deficits. "He's here to audit the Co-Chairmanship," Audrey deduced, watching Vex on the surveillance feed a lean, impeccably dressed man who carried himself with unsettling calm, like a newly sharpened scalpel. He was the antithesis of the Syndicate's usual brutalist aesthetic, favoring polished leather and precision instead of chrome and concrete. "He wants to find the loophole, the weakness in our partnership." Audrey faced Vex alone in the private conference room, the glass walls insulating her from the chaos of the command center but exposing her to the auditor's piercing scrutiny. Vex didn't acknowledge her title. He simply laid out a series of cold demands: full access to all Syndicate finances, a complete behavioral profile of me, and a mandatory psych evaluation for Audrey herself. "The Council requires certainty," Operator Vex purred, refusing to use her new title. Your father's sudden indisposition, the elimination of Vance, the introduction of a new, unsanctioned partner, it all suggests instability. Audrey didn't flinch. The only instability, she countered, maintaining absolute eye contact, is the global anomaly currently destabilizing the North Pole. My focus is on containing a threat that could expose the Syndicate to the world. Your focus, Mr. Vex, should be on survival, not paperwork. Vex only smiled, a cold, empty expression that felt less human than digital. Survival is predicated on order. You have disrupted the order, and you have failed to secure the heirloom's full functionality. The ring is a key, operator, not a crown. If your partner proves unsuitable, you will use that key to initiate the dissolution of this arrangement. He tapped the thick dossier, containing my psychological profile, a gesture that conveyed total control over my personal history. While Audrey wrestled with the political threat, I discovered something terrifying about the energy signature. Using Elias's most restricted satellite network, I managed to capture a low-resolution spectral image from the deep subsurface. It required overriding several geological firewalls that Elias had personally coded, a process that took nearly 40 minutes of tense, concentrated effort, all while the harmonic pulse hammered against the crust. I finally captured the image and pulled it up to full resolution. "Audrey, look at this." I called her to the console. The image was blurry, distorted by the immense pressure and heat, but the structure was unmistakable. The three equidistant points weren't just energy sources. They were structured, massive objects, like three monolithic pillars driven deep into the earth, pulsating with a harmonic frequency. "They're too big to be drills, and they're moving too fast," I said, my voice tense. The movement wasn't propulsion. It was a rhythmic, oscillating vibration that drove them deeper with every pulse. And the energy they're emitting is generating localized gravity wells. It's distorting the space around it. I ran a simulation based on the escalating frequency. The result was catastrophic. If the harmonic frequency amplified much further, it wouldn't just breach the crust. It would trigger a massive seismic event that would permanently reshape the Arctic region. Worse, the immediate disruption would plunge the world into a new ice age by irrevocably disrupting the crucial ocean currents. "This is not a political maneuver," Audrey whispered, finally grasping the scale of the threat. Her face, previously focused on Vex's tactics, now showed pure existential dread. "It's an existential one. The Council can be managed. This must be stopped. It's too deep for conventional Syndicate operations," I noted. "We need a deep submergence vehicle, specialized drilling equipment, and a deployment team with absolutely no emotional ties. A suicide mission." Audrey made her final decision. The Syndicate was not built to save the world, but to control it. To control the world, it needed a world to exist. She sent a coded signal to the most remote, self-sufficient Syndicate cell project, Abyss. This was a Black Ops submersible team designed for extreme deep-sea resource extraction, rumored to be run by operators who had volunteered to vanish from the surface world, their existence erased from the main roster. They were the ghosts of the Syndicate's forgotten operations, and now they were our only hope. "Project Abyss is our only chance," Audrey said, her gaze fixed on the alert status, which was creeping into the critical zone. We send them in with a localized dampener field to disrupt the harmonic frequency. If they can disable one pillar, the others might destabilize, giving us time to understand the source. And if they can't? I asked, watching the simulated seismic stress map turn ominous shades of red. Then we have to find out what happens when 3 unknown pillars breach the Earth's crust, Audrey replied, turning to the surveillance feed where Marcus Vex was still reviewing documents in the conference room. He was observing the command staff with the clinical detachment of a scientist observing a terminal illness. The clock above the console showed T-minus 6 hours until Project Abyss reached the deep anomaly. The immediate crisis was tactical, but the ultimate mystery remained intellectual. Why had Elias, who hoarded secrets like a dragon, never disclosed this threat? We needed the truth, and the only place left to look was the hidden archive of Elias Thorne. Using the heirloom's authentication chip, the metallic key found in the Art of War I accessed Elias's sequestered hard drives. The files were not stored in the Syndicate's main server bank, but in his standalone Faraday-caged server deep beneath his penthouse, protected by layers of fractal encryption that had held for decades. The archive was massive, filled not with the financial reports I expected, but with obscure geological, astronomical, and mythological texts. He had been researching, obsessively, not managing. Deep within the files, hidden under layers of randomized key phrases and protected by custom biometrics, was a single rambling document titled The Architect's Elias hadn't been fighting mere human rivals. He believed the Syndicate's immense power and wealth were based not on superior strategy, but on its location. He suspected the Syndicate hadn't discovered the unique, vast concentration of rare isotopes beneath Ironwood command. He suspected they were planted The pillars are not tools of destruction, Elias had typed in the file, his prose spiraling towards the mystical. They are maintenance nodes installed by an intelligence that predates humanity's organized memory. Their purpose is to keep the planet viable for a future harvest. His text detailed his growing, terrifying belief that the Syndicate's entire apparatus, its resource extraction, its logistical control, its financial networks were merely tertiary functions designed to protect and facilitate a far larger, hidden system. He thought the Syndicate was just part of someone else's infrastructure, Audrey whispered, horrified, reading the text over my shoulder. The machine we thought we controlled was just a service station, designed to keep the power running for the true owners. The file detailed Elias's belief that the Council of the Ghosts were not ancient bankers, but custodians. They managed the Syndicate's wealth to ensure the maintenance funds were always available for the pillars, though they themselves likely never fully understood the nature of the expense. This is why the ring is so important, I realized, looking at the dark silver heirloom on Audrey's finger. It's the ultimate key. It probably doesn't just manage the Syndicate's assets. It manages the resources allocated to this geological maintenance, the upkeep of the pillars. Elias's entire criminal empire was a planetary landscaping business for an absentee landlord. The Triton team reported reaching the insertion point. The pressure was already immense, distorting their sonar and making communication choppy. The captain, a man named Kale, whose voice was unervingly calm, confirmed the mission parameters. Deploy the localized dampener field against the harmonic frequency of the nearest pillar, Pillar 1. The dampener needs to be delivered directly to the pillar's surface, I relayed, my voice tight. You have 30 minutes to deploy before the increasing frequency overwhelms your hull integrity. Just as Kale confirmed the mission parameters, Marcus Vex entered the war room, his file on me closed, a satisfied smirk on his face. He had calculated the weak point, and now he was moving for the kill. Co-Chairman Thorne, Vex announced, his voice carrying through the tense silence. I have completed my initial assessment of the chief operator. His profile confirms his suitability for high-risk action, but only when his sister, Lila Shaw, is secured. My recommendation is that to ensure his continued loyalty during this precarious operation, the location of his critical asset be secured under council lock. Audrey's eyes flashed, knowing the political trap. If she gave up Lila's location, Vex would control my loyalty, fracturing the partnership and gaining a massive political advantage. If she refused, Vex would use the insubordination to activate the Chimera Protocol, effectively purging both of us and installing his own regime. The survival of the Syndicate and the world hung on this choice. Lila is not Syndicate property, Audrey stated, her hand resting heavily on the heirloom ring. But your partner is, Vex countered, gesturing at me with clinical disdain. I require the coordinates. Co-chairman, now, or I will assume you prioritize your emotional bond over the council's security mandate. I stepped forward, breaking the silent formation. The coordinates are irrelevant, Mr. Vex. If the pillars breach the crust, there will be no safe location on this planet. My loyalty is to the survival of the species, which currently requires me to ensure this mission succeeds. Audrey looked at me, a silent understanding passing between us. The truth of the global threat was the only weapon Vex couldn't dismantle. She turned to Vex, and with a single sharp gesture, magnified the deep fissure seismic reading to fill the entire war room, showcasing the terrifying escalating graph. Here are the coordinates of the only thing that matters, Mr. Vex, and if Project Abyss fails, I will use the power of the heirloom to ensure that the total liquidation of the Syndicate's assets is the least of your concerns. Vex stared at the seismic threat, momentarily humbled by the scale of the impending catastrophe. He stepped back, conceding the political battle for the moment, but his intent remained clear. He retreated to his conference room, a coiled snake waiting for the abyss to swallow us whole. The Triton dove into the darkness, carrying the hopes of the Syndicate, and perhaps the world, on a suicide mission against an intelligence that viewed humanity as pests disrupting their garden.